everything we said about last week kind of stands this week as far as characters go. But the plot actually moves forward in this one.
I thought it was a really strong episode.
You say that every week.
I think in retrospect, as the week went on, I think last week will probably be the weakest episode of the season.
I think last week's definitely should have been blended into this week's.
I had that thought as well, slightly. I think they wanted to let a few things breathe, like Aemond, for example, not immediately going power hungry. We want a bit of time for that to settle in with him and us as the audience.
Which doesn't really happen in the episode, though. That more happens in real time, because it was like, oh, it was a week ago Aemond got king. Whereas if you were binging this, if you were watching this back to back to back,
blend in.
It would be very much, Aemond is king, Aemond is now in charge.
Yeah, we did say that last week would be the blendy-in episode that you don't really remember being an episode.
Yeah, so they're definitely treating it as if it should be weekly.
It was very much a bridging.
But also, we say last week was meant to let things breathe, but honestly, we got about 2 minutes with Corlys, and then we got like even less within this time.
That's something that I'm really annoyed that Corlys has no friction or tension with Rhaenyra, someone he believes potentially killed his son. And then also, in the book, Rhaenyra directly sends Rhaenys to go to Rook's Rest. Where here they have decided to, and I will give trust to the writing team, because so far they've done a wonderful job overall, that they want Rhaenyra to be spared of any kind of bad decision so
Which
far.
is bad. She's got no agency. Even this one, she spent the exact same amount of time complaining that no one listens to her as she did last episode. And when she gets back from the church, she says, I guess I'm going to have to kick some ass to take my crown. And then last episode, she says, people need to stop talking about Daemon. I'm going to be in charge. And then this episode, she goes, people really need to stop talking about Daemon. I'm going to be in charge.
Daemon, Daemon, Daemon.
Instead, I'm going to make out with a woman.
We'll get all to that.
Is that in the book? Is she...
It's not in the book.
I know that Mushroom was the salacious one, so I was wondering whether they'd be like... whether he would point out like any rumors or anything.
Mushroom claims that he was running the council because Rhaenyra was in such over her children dying. He was so upset that Mushroom was actually secretly running the council.
So he just went with a woman cried a lot rather than there was a spicy affair.
My problem was there's a great line where Corlys says to Rhaenyra in the book, it should have been you. You should have been the one who went to Rook's Rest, not my wife.
When I first saw him rock up to Dragonstone this episode, I'm like, all right, let's see what he says. What are his motivations? And he doesn't have a motivation. He's just put it on.
I'm a little bit... Last week, I think they tried to do it and had that scene with Baylor, they hoped. And one maybe thinks that is enough.
I like what he said to Baylor, and I like that sets up his bastard becoming the heir that they really touch on this episode.
And they confirm
But it really
eldest.
does make it feel like these two episodes should either be blended or everything should get moved up one, just because of the way that everyone gets about 2 minutes in this episode. Every 5 minutes, you're in a new place doing a new thing with new people. And then 15, 20 minutes later, you then cut back to those same people who have moved about 10 meters, but then they continue on with what they're doing. I just feel like we need more time with each character in each scene to actually have what they want to do instead of jumping away so often.
We talk about Rhaenyra. I suppose one could say it's a bit lampshady what they're doing. That Rhaenyra's going, I can't do anything. I'm so annoyed. And it's like the audience goes, right?
Do something.
The term lampshade meaning where they know there's a problem, but if they reference the problem, it kind of fixes it. Almost exactly what she said this week.
Every
I almost
episode this
heard last
season.
week.
Yeah.
Why can't I do anything? I'm so annoyed. So her wanting the dragons is her trying to get that strength back. Darkling does die in the book in trying to get Sea Smoke.
Even though I know that he wouldn't end up with Sea Smoke because of the way they've been foreshadowing so heavily with Adam. For a bit there, I'm like, oh,
maybe.
Like it was still quite a tense scene. They were still very well played, very well directed.
And that dragon song's awesome.
I expected him to get like snatched up or something, but then he's kind of like, oh, I actually do want a rider. Like a rider seems like a pretty good idea. Actually, I miss my bond. And then he stepped forward too slowly maybe. And he's like, actually, you're not good enough.
Yeah. Then obviously Sea Smoke went and declared that he wants a rider. And basically,
fantastic flame effects though.
Yeah, you're right. It's the mix of CG and real life fire. The Dragon Keepers in the book are described as being like armored, more like when they're more like worshipping monks. What's the use in armor with dragons as well?
Exactly, yeah. They don't control the dragons. If they were wearing armor, maybe that's showing weakness kind of deal. Like, you can't be afraid of a dragon, so being unarmored right in front of them and just having their
confidence,
stick.
Yeah. I suppose. That's a small point.
It's just a cool visual too.
Yeah, so I think with Rhaenyra, the funny scene where she's arguing with Jace and she goes, I'm tired of everyone going, Daemon, Daemon, Daemon.
Daemon, Daemon, Daemon.
Your Grace.
Then a Kingsguard comes in, and I laughed at the idea, and it wasn't it, where one of the Kingsguard go, "My queen, we've got word from Daemon." Like,
She's just sitting there like, God, smacks him around.
Yeah, oh yeah, she smacks Lord whatever the fuck, I forget his name. You know, the Lord is talking to her and he says like, "Why would I subscribe to Bergenbeard?" And she turns around and slaps him and goes, "Turn on that notification bell, you bitch."
That was excellent.
Thank you. And she goes, I obviously haven't reminded you, you need to fear me.
Which is a good line, but again, because she's so ineffectual overall, is it lampshading? Is it them just saying she knows she needs to do something?
I suppose the one thing Rhaenyra has done that is morally questionable, even though maybe the show doesn't do the greatest of highlighting it, is that she with the Sea Snake have caused a blockade at King's Landing, which means that there's no food coming in.
But then they deliver the food.
But then she delivers the food and is seen as like, "Oh, our queen, how lovely of her."
Which I like, that the small folk are very easily swayed.
Yes.
They're important, but stupid.
The idea that she sent that food in on Mazaria's advice, knowing that it would cause more stress, that there wouldn't be enough and people would be stealing and grabbing.
You cause a civil war. It's a good idea. It's good tactics.
It's a good tactic, but I'd say that maybe Rhaenyra isn't showing remorse for manipulating people.
Yeah, she only seems to care about her crown.
Because it is Game of Thrones. Everyone has ulterior motives. She's all about the small folk, she reckons, protecting the small folk.
Mysaria has her speech in this episode where she says that Rhaenyra would be the best queen because she does think of the small folk, because she is merciful, because she showed Mysaria mercy. And we haven't really seen that. We saw her show Mysaria mercy, but we haven't seen her care about the small folk. But maybe you could have had Rhaenyra be like, "I hate that we have to do this to the small folk." Like, even just a couple of lines.
Like, the line I've been seeing is, we all love women rights, but can we get some women wrongs?
Yes.
And, like in Game of Thrones, the show and the original books, Cersei Lannister is, well, in the book, she's brilliant. She's an angry idiot. Like, she actually thinks she's her father, but she's a moron. When in the show, they make her a little bit more clever.
She's smarter in the show until Tywin's on there. And then Tywin's like, "No, you are an idiot."
And then the writing ran out.
They also had Dany being vicious. Like, when Dany needed to, she put people down.
The small folk aren't that switched on. They just blame the people in the castle over there. Yeah. And, we get that fairly heavy-handed scene of things used to be real good when Viserys was in charge. Hey, remember Viserys?
No, I didn't take that as heavy-handed at all. That was them sowing dissent. So that was... I know, but...
The fact that those two are acting, Diana and the madam.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if Ulf White was acting
on it or not.
That was my only confusion, because he gets really on board, and also we know he's a liar.
But then when he's outside, he kind of has they get sheep, do they?
So it's like, I'm not sure whether he was cued into it because we showed him, he's like, "I'm a Targaryen." Like, he could be a storyteller.
The last big Rhaenyra point is, I hope it's not controversial for the sake of that it's two women kissing. But maybe some people might think that it's a weird choice.
It's very out of nowhere in the way that I understand Mysaria, because she's definitely made out with women before, like in her industry and all like that.
And you could argue that she's trying to secure her place.
Possibly, or maybe she actually just does love Ray. That's the thing. It's very confusing right now. We don't know why.
It's a moment of weakness. She's got no one just fighting her corner. She's got no one to go back to her chambers and be like, "Fucking those lords, hey, mate, they've been dickheads." So Myzaria's playing that. Hey, I get it, babes. It's all understandable.
She's shown no interest in women.
Well, one could argue that they were pretty heavy-handed with she probably had a crush on Alicent and vice versa as children.
When?
I think there's enough there that one could read into it. They queer-coded.
Maybe.
If next week we're finding them naked under the sheets, I'd probably be a bit more like, But if this was just a moment of weakness,
like, does she have time for this?
Do we have time for this? Flying into next episode, literally. Is she going to take offence at a bastard of all things? And the irony of her taking offence at a bastard claiming a dragon, where 3 of her sons are technically bastards.
And there is a line from Jace in the preview as well where he says, "Giving away our heritage, what is being a Targaryen if not that?" And I'm like, well, and it was his idea.
And Jace last week was saying, who says it has to be Valyrian blood? It could be
They're a little bit Targaryen, it's fine.
Or like at all, maybe just Valyrians had their propaganda. But he's trying to talk about it should remain in the Targaryen hold. But you were about to give a dragon to a Darkling.
We'll have to see how they play it next week, but that's next week. So as Rhaenyra says, Daemon, let's talk a little bit about Daemon.
We got what I think everyone anticipated was some Viserys dreams. I like that they recreated the scene where he banishes him from court for the heir for the day, which both in the show and in the book, we don't know how Daemon said that line. Like, does he mean it in a romantic, melancholic way or somewhat sarcastic?
Is that just how he deals with it?
I'm in charge.
Yeah, but he gets to react to it differently in this one.
I mean, it's more of what we've been having with Daemon for the past few weeks.
It's a lot of Daemon not doing anything except having these dreams, but by the end of this, it does move forward.
It does move forward.
It's like he got a reward in real life for that, so it's like doing what he should have done and being there for his brother. Grover Tully passes in real life. So it's like, is that because he had the dream, or did he have the dream because things are working out? Because most of his time is spent talking to Alice Rivers again, who might be real. I was talking a lot last week about how she might not even be real. And you said apparently she disappears behind
Simon Strong when he gives her a good look.
But in this, he does reference her and says, our maester. And that's why Damon's like, well, that's why he's dead.
Our own healer, Alice Rivers.
But things are looking up for Daemon finally.
Yeah, I really like that we got to see the second dream where Viserys is mourning over his
wife, yeah,
and his dead child. And I was wondering if did that happen, or is that a moment that Daemon wished that he had done, that he'd went to his brother?
I took it as he should have been there. Instead of drinking and whoring and being General Daemon, he should have actually been there for his brother.
You know, you've got to remember that he was on Dragonstone for 6 years. He comes back, finds his brother half a corpse. His brother then wakes up, reaffirms his daughter as queen, reaffirms Lucerys as the heir to Driftmark, then dies. And so Daemon hasn't actually had much chance to mourn or be reflective.
I'm glad we're getting the Daemon time. I just wish it was more condensed so that we didn't have 3 weeks of him having dreams, whereas we could have 2 or 1 episode.
You know, one could argue budget, but in an ideal world where you've got 10 episodes and all the budget, maybe you have a bit more of a Daemon dreams at night, and then we're then seeing Daemon struggling, because this is the guy who really thinks himself as being a king. He's a descendant of Aegon the Conqueror, who in the history rode into the Riverlands, burned down Harrenhal, everyone bowed to him. I'm off to conquer the next place. So Daemon, thinking himself like that, we got to see it last week, which I guess is what they think they've covered that base. I would have liked to have seen more of that, the political struggles of, here you go, Daemon, here's a country for you to rule. You finally get what you want.
True.
And the struggle of trying to navigate these lords.
It's a burden to be bared, not something to be fought for. And that just showed Alice Rivers knowing a lot of things. Like, she knew that Viserys didn't want the crown.
Yeah.
So it's showing her knowing things that she doesn't or shouldn't know.
Well, that she correctly predicts that Grover would pass.
Yes, predicts.
Well,
made happen.
Senses.
We'll find out.
And we get more hints. Is she a barn owl? Who knows?
I said that when she arrived. I'm like, she did say she was a barn owl.
Yeah, because there's this lovely line at the first part of him in Harrenhal where Simon Strong says how Lord Grover is deathly ill, and he says people should obey their liege lord no matter their condition. Obviously referring to the fact that his brother was very ill, and people should still respect the position. And so next week, we'll obviously preview, but we're going to get Oscar coming in and Daemon having to probably, apologise to Oscar, humble himself before the Lord.
Which doesn't leave much time in the season if he has to spend next week actually getting them all together. So the finale is definitely going to be the Lannister army, the Cole army, finally meeting up with the Riverland army. You probably know the shot the season will end on, or the battle.
I know, I've got a rough idea of what the shot would be, what I would like the shot to be, but I can pretty much in my head can confirm where the ending of this season will be, and I think a few things are getting moved around for season 3 stuff.
Okay.
But I think it's probably going to end up being 4 seasons, actually.
If I was to guess, if there is 4 battles left after whatever the Riverlands does, then it's going to be 2 more seasons, because it'll be a mid-season battle, of end of season battle, season 4 will be mid-season battle, end of season 4 battle, and the end of the dance.
Yes.
That's just if you were doing it 2 battles a season.
I have in my head my ideal end shot of the whole season, of what I would like it to be, the absolute end shot. There's a beautiful ending to this. If they do it right, there's a beautiful ending to this. But anyway, that's 5 years down the line. Speaking of battles, our opening shot is Lord Lannister.
He's such a wanker.
This is Tyrion Lannister, who, imagine being Jason, just because this guy was the first one out, he gets to be Lord.
He gets the cool armor.
My little nerdy, well, actually, they use the the Reign of Castamere, dun, 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 which is just the theme of the Lannisters now.
Yeah.
But
And it's a good song.
The Reign of Castamere hasn't happened because Tywin wasn't born, but it's a non-diegetic thing, so
Remember Game of Thrones?
whatever, it's fine. They're rolling up to the Golden Tooth, where House Lefford lives, and that's basically
Is that what it was?
the equivalent of House Frey into the Riverlands. Like, it's this little
From
narrow
the west
gateway
into
to
the-
get into the Riverlands. So Tylan, similar to his descendant Tywin Lannister, decides to wait things out and see what happens somewhat, because Tywin in history during Robert's Rebellion didn't claim a side until it was clear who was going to win.
Yeah.
This isn't the case here, but
Well, Tylan doesn't want to die, so
Yeah.
he's smart enough to know, oh, they have a dragon? I need a dragon before I'm willing to run in there. Especially because you would hear word of Rook's Rest and you're like, oh, 900 men died because there was a dragon there. I only have that many.
and one would assume that Thailand is a student of his house history, where during the Aegon's The Conquest, the Lannister king and the Gardner king of the Reach united forces and became the ultimate land army.
Right.
It meant fuck all because the
'Cause
three
dragons.
dragons rolled in. Thailand knows we have the biggest army ever, but if they've got a dragon, it's not going to work.
Yeah. It's always the bloody Green Council that are the best damn scenes in the show at the moment.
Aegon and all that are moving towards being favourites, and I would say purely because they actually have some depth and twists. Where Rhaenyra this season, yes, in the book she's just sitting, and they'd rather her be trying to have something happen than just being upset.
Yeah, there was a bit of a debate in the comments last week about whether she should be doing something or not, and
But what could she do? And
because she's not doing anything in the book, should they have invented something, or should they have almost written her out for at least a little while, or...
well, their attempt is going to King's Landing, or
Yeah,
or
it's-
giving her some of Jace's initiative.
half an attempt.
You know, we need to get the dragons together.
Yeah, because it cuts almost directly to Aemond, and he's completely different to how we've ever seen him. He's not reserved in any way.
He's finally the guy in the room, so
Yeah.
it completely makes sense.
He never put a foot out of line, well, tried not to put a foot out of line except Luke, because he knew it wouldn't benefit his end goal, and now that he's at his almost end goal, he's just letting loose, slagging everyone off because he can do whatever he wants.
Eamon's pissed off because he gets, the reports back, the channel analytics.
That most of you aren't subbed.
These guys, who are they?
Find them! Because he sees himself as above everyone. Like, he is the best person he knows.
Yeah, he thinks of himself as, he has
It's a god complex.
he rides the biggest dragon possible. So he thinks, I'm the strongest guy in the field, and now I'm the strongest, smartest guy in the room when I'm ruling.
Yep.
So now that he, I'm the guy in the big chair. So he's saying we need to go make amends with the Triarchy. We get a name drop of the Red Kraken over on the Iron Islands.
Yep.
Maybe we can marry the Dowager too. And she's like, fuck off. Which, not only because you can't just use me as a political thing, but also they are the worst people to
Very
be married
rapey.
to. Very rapey. We do not sow, so they just raid for their
Yeah.
food. The worst people, like maybe the only one worse would be House Bolton. Maybe like we peel people's skin, like apart from that. So I'm a big fan of the Boltons. I said it. Fuck off. He wants to make peace with amends with the Triarchy. Get those boats in because they're the only ones we've got.
It could be semi-short-sighted in the way that he's willing to cause more problems
Wow,
for himself
dickhead,
later.
he's got one eye. Yeah, nice.
Nice. Just to fuck with Rhaenyra as much as possible. He's willing to possibly start another war later, but he probably thinks he can deal with that war later.
Yeah,
so he's like,
'cause I've got my big dragon.
I'll start a war now, and then later on, I'll roll through and just burn all those ships to a.
Yes.
Why doesn't, because it didn't happen in the books, but he probably could just lay waste to all those ships on Vega.
I think it's a political. I think that's what they would expect, right? One could assume scorpions.
I don't know if scorpions are allowed on boats until Game of Thrones. Just attack from the sun. It worked for Daenerys. It's because it would break continuity.
That's why.
Yeah.
The key moment of that scene, after we get some of the political movings of him dominating the space, is he dismisses his mother.
Yes, he has a great scene with Alicent, but before that, he sends pretty much everyone away. He sends Cole away to war. Tyler, he says, you fuck off. Go deliver a message to your brother. In one of the end scenes, he only has 2 people sitting at the table with him.
Yes, the ones who remain.
Because he doesn't need them. Why would Aemond need a council? He's the smartest guy in the world.
I don't know if they intended this, but it made me laugh because we always say how Aemon still is that little boy playing badass, playing Terminator.
Yeah.
In episode 10 of season 1, when Luke goes and sees the Baratheon Lord, Storm's End, he goes, you go tell her that the Lord of Storm's End is not a a dog that she can whistle up. Aemond pretty much says that line, like, who is he to tell me to whistle me up like a hound? I thought the idea that Aemond was in that room going, that's pretty cool
good
fucking
line.
I'm going to fucking use that.
Files that away.
It feels in character for Aemond that he would do
just
that.
taking the coolest bits of everything he's ever heard.
And combining it. And I like that.
Now that he has everything, it'll be interesting to see his fall. Because his fall is going to be hard.
It'd be very hard.
Oh, is he going to fall this time? God damn it.
No, I love a good wide. So there's been lots of lovely wides this episode. We had an Alicent wide, you have a Daemon wide, you have a Rhaenyra wide.
Aemond next to Aegon in bed, the shot with the light beams coming in, that's wonderful too.
Yeah, because he's only got, obviously, one eye. So when Alicent touches her hand and says, like, hey, like, surely you're feeling good about yourself now, like, the rage of the past is gone. And we see him have a moment of being that young lad again. And then we cut straight to the eye patch.
To the evil side.
To the evil side, right, kind of. And I thought that was a purposeful choice. That was a nice, that's the side that everyone thinks, that he's Aemond one eye.
I think the DOP at one point said that he kept flipping the scenes or slowly flipping them during the shots so that they could show that it's all turning.
We get told when he's running another council, he's got the ball in his hand, he's sitting pretty fucking comfy. And then old Clubbyfoot comes in and hits him with the whole, if only you had like a better hand, eh?
Which is funny because he was in the wrong space at the wrong time last time. So he's like, I'm going to get it this time.
Our headcanon can be confirmed that when word got to Larys, he was like, fucking what? Like, who'd he pick? I was saying how annoying it was that Larys's technique is just... if only, right? And we see him sucking up earlier when he goes, his grace shows great knowledge. Yeah. So when that comes in going, oh, you need to pick a hand, and Aemond just calls me out going, do you think I'm a fucking idiot?
Like, no.
What are you talking about? And then he goes, I will give you this honour. He goes, oh, thank you, Grace. Yeah, I'll give you this honour to go get my granddad back. Yeah, and I thought that was great.
Which just pisses Larys off. So then he goes to talk to Aegon after everyone. On Aegon, there's a quick scene with Aemond where everyone's pitying Aegon, yeah.
When he's scared of him and he goes, I don't remember a thing.
Which is the correct response. I don't remember anything.
There's a dragon attack? When? Oh,
it's like, what? No, what? He never wanted to be king and now he's terrified for his life. I don't know if he ever gets better, but he's probably hoping he doesn't at this point, because if he's an invalid, then his brother won't even try to kill him.
But these are the theme of, like, those who strive for it often don't want it. And we got those little clips of if Aegon had came to the throne in peacetime, maybe he would have just continued doing what his dad did.
Just would have been nice to the small folk.
Otto knows how to run in peacetime pretty well. Let's just continue doing this. A smart political move from Aemond to bring Otto back. I mean, you can't deny it. Otto knows
Best man for the job, and he knows
Best man for the job, who's loyal to him.
And also, Aemond knows that any unsage advice, he'll just ignore anyway. Also, is Aemond still engaged to a Baratheon? Okay, because we haven't seen any on that, and Aemond has no heirs.
Well, that's it, because in the book we have Maelor, which I don't know, because there's some fan theories that maybe Aemond's going to get with his sister and we get Maelor that way.
Right.
There's a pretty somewhat important tragic-y bit involving Maelor, but I imagine it's not the end of the world if it's not involved. So we get when he comes and sees his brother and basically says, don't say shit, because if you do say shit, I'm going to fucking kill you. And he presses the king ball into his chest.
Yes.
Which is to be horrible, but also, I guess, is to seem nice. Like, here's the ball for you, king. Where when you're back in, you can plug in. It's to look nice. I wonder if that'll come back later where maybe Aegon, like, takes a swing at him with the ball or something. Who knows? Well, there's a line in season 4 of Game of Thrones where Tyrion refers to his sister as using honest feelings to do this honest work. And I wonder if Larys is doing something similar there, where I'm sure Larys is generally traumatised by his experience in Harrenhal and the fact that he's had to grow up.
Well, he doesn't want to go back there, so it wasn't fun.
No. And then the hint that Alice Rivers maybe caused it, so like a...
Yes, that was an interesting thing you pointed out that I missed. He says, my father accused... all of the maesters
in the household or something,
accused everyone of witchcraft, and you brought up it could be Alice Rivers, and I'm like, true, we don't know how old she is.
I mean, wonderful performance. I mean, the guy hasn't really had much apart from being just conniving.
This is the meatiest scene he's had, and I was glad to see it. It made me think, oh, we didn't need him in season 1. He could have popped up in season 2, had this, and I'd be like, oh yeah, that guy doing that stuff. Even though we still don't quite know what Larys wants, Aegon was still a better choice.
Yeah, for him in terms of control. So Alicent, she's been told you politically are pointless, so we don't need you around anymore. She spends that episode trying to to connect with her kids.
Yeah, true. She does have a single scene with every kid.
Like, that's her domestication. And so she apologizes to Aegon.
Oh, and she also has a scene with her brother, which ties into it, where she says, maybe I should have been a better mum to everyone.
When she asks, what's Daemon like?
Gwaine is a little lad. Love Gwaine.
Yeah, great actor.
And just the way he's now very harrowed. Like, he came in pretty cocky last episode, and he's like, let's go to war, baby. Because he's just been growing up as a lord, basically.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to see him talk about Daeron. Were you happy to get Daeron's mention?
Yeah, I thought it was a wonderful sad scene when she just asks what her son's like.
It was very sad to see her breakdown about, like, oh, I kind of goofed up everything slowly over time. Like, I've never really done anything right.
And she's relieved that her youngest son's nice because he wasn't involved with her.
Yeah. And he's 16 now, so he can definitely ride a dragon.
There's just been some theories that maybe old Darren has brown hair, and that would explain maybe why he was shunned away, because when she's here trying to go, these strong bastards, and all of a sudden you can imagine Viserys going, our kid has brown hair, their kid has brown hair, done.
I guess. Warding was a massive thing.
And they relate that to, as Gwaine says, he goes, you were father's favourite, and she goes, yeah, and you were left at the high tower, aged 8 without a mother, and he does that typical bloke thing of, you just get on with it, don't you?
Yeah.
Which is, bad man mental health stuff. Where it's, you just soldier on. We hear so much about Daeron, and he's the good one of the bunch, sort of. And I hope we get to see, maybe we don't see the actor, but maybe we get to see, like, Otto rolling in with a dragon behind him.
Well, we don't know where Otto is, apparently. Otto's somewhere.
Somewhere,
even by the end of the episode, they're like...
Well, wait, because Aemon goes, I want word to me grandfather.
I don't know if you're doing this sarcastically. Oh. Are you saying you know where he is?
No.
Okay, I wasn't sure whether you were doing one of your sarcastic allusions.
Aemon going, I want word sent to my grandfather. But then, we get 2-3 moments of, I haven't heard from him.
Yeah, Alicent says, I've sent him ravens, no reply. He won't reply to the other ravens. He's not in the high tower as far as they know.
Yes, it's crazy.
It does seem a very Otto thing to do. Like, he wouldn't just go back, and he would keep doing what he's doing.
We get your favourite 1 minute with what Rhaena's up to.
Yeah, Rhaena, every single scene this time, because again, I think by the 25th minute mark, we've had 5 different scenes on 5 different people, and then we just redo all of those again. So basically we get 10 or 12 scenes in this one episode, all of which I think could have been linked up and longer and give time to breathe. But instead, I don't know whether they're jumping around to give the illusion of time passing, or whether they're jumping around because
it's at least been 3 days for Daemon from one to the other.
Yes, so. by Daemon's first to the end. And you could have Daemon go to sleep, wake up, and 3 days have gone by. I don't give a fuck. Like, no one cares. But we finally get Sheep Stealer.
Well, there we see Sheep Stealer's work.
Well, yes. If you know the name Sheep Stealer, it's safe to assume...
It's a few sheep knocking about.
Yeah, and Lady Jane Arryn has...
He's like, was there a dragon here all along?
I mean, she doesn't... It's weird that she didn't say it, because the reason she didn't say it was because it's riderless. It's not useful to them, but the fact she didn't bring it up at all is stupid for the plot. Like, again, they could have sowed that seed, dragon seed, a long time ago.
It's crazy that we even got to see Aegon the Younger's little dragon too, which is wild.
Yeah, he's just hanging out inside. I'm like, oh, little dragon.
They're going off to Pentos because Daemon has connections with...
That's not going to end well, because Rhaena's not going to leave.
Rhaena's only there to look after these children.
Yes, well, she's meant to go with them.
Yes.
But I know nothing about that yet. Something's going to happen, because Rhaena's not going to leave. Like, Rhaena's like, oh, there's a dragon here, I can get a dragon. I'm going to let these kids go off. And if you send 2 little kids off on their own to Pentos, which is full of pirates, I can only assume shit will happen.
George Mine's complaint that dragons don't migrate. We get the show's explanation of, since the war broke out...
It went for food.
The maesters assume move for food, which is what we fucking said.
Yeah.
Would
and
be
we're like, cool, cleaned it up with
the Vale's got sheep, so...
But I'm not talking about Rhaena until she mounts a dragon.
Yeah.
Rhaena.
Yeah, because the moment Rhaena mounts a dragon, she becomes useful, and if she mounts it too early, it becomes a problem, because then she would logically want to roll into war.
But also we have Baelor and Jace, and they're not doing anything.
Yeah, we didn't see Baelor this episode. No, considering she wasn't even there during the council scene, was quite strange.
That was strange, yeah. She probably should have at least been in the background.
We get that little touch just reminding us that Rhaena exists. They're pretty heavy-handed with that. Like, I think most people are expecting it'll be weird if Rhaena doesn't get a dragon. Yeah, we even got reminded again how Rhaena tried to get a dragon, but couldn't.
Yes, and Corlys is like, oh, she tried, but no, it failed. No more Rhaena. Sick of Rhaena. Sick of Rhaena doing nothing. The only two things left are Sea Smoke and Smallfolk. So let's do Sea Smoke first.
Okay, so we get that little touch where Alan is shaving the whites in his hair.
I never thought about that the fact that's why he's shaving his head is because he's got the blonde hair. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool, actually. Because I don't know why the younger brother didn't get blonde hair.
In the book, Adam's the eldest, and they're both white and blonde.
It's just strange that they're still going to give him a dragon.
I like that they've done that, because given that Adam's the one who gets the dragon, Alan should probably be the one who becomes heir to Driftmark as well. So it's not just Adam being like, I've got a dragon and
his
the
little
castle.
brother's like, this fucking sucks, dude.
Yeah.
No, I'm glad they split that up, but I don't know why. I think they both either should have had no hair, or maybe one dyes it. I don't know. It's just an odd choice to give him a dragon, but to not give him the hair.
Egg from Duncan Egg, which we'll get next year, shaves his head to hide the fact that he's a Targaryen prince.
Okay.
And Fanfury Varys shaves his head to hide the fact that he's of a...
Varys?
Varys from Game of Thrones.
Weird.
That he is a Blackfire descendant, and that's why he, in the books, is trying to put a Blackfire back on the throne. The Blackfires don't exist in the show, so that means fuck all to you.
Huh.
In the book, he's described as having a bald head like an egg. So that's the connection with our boy Aegon. So
yeah, I mean, George has done that before, like with the whole like, who's John's mum? If you tell me, I'll give you a TV show.
Corlys pretty much goes, I'm giving you a fucking good role there, mate. And he's like, is this an order or a favour? And he's like, Corlys is like, right, well, I'll expect you out next week. So
it's an order now, because I'm going to make you my goddamn heir. Don't you worry. Yes. But yes, he gets to become first mate. We didn't really need to see him. They could have done this whole thing last episode as well. I don't know. Have it more reactionary that he's like, Baylor, you can be my heir. Then he's like, no. And then at the end of the episode, then he talks to the kids. The reason I think they should both have blonde hair, grey hair, is because if at the end of this episode, Rhaenyra flies off to go find out who Sea Smoke's new rider is, we saw earlier that Adam got accosted by Sea Smoke. He was like, get on my back. Do it. I need part Laenor. You got a little bit of Laenor. Which, I think if he looked like Laenor, who had the long dreads, obviously they can't have both. They can't have him have grey hair without us realizing too early that he is a bastard. Yeah. But I just want the visual of Rhaenyra flying alongside and seeing Laenor on Sea Smoke from a distance and being like, oh, Laenor's back, even if for like a split second before going, you're not Laenor. Who the hell are you? So that's why I want that grey hair, but I know why they can't do it. Maybe he always wore a beret or something.
In the book, Laenor is definitely killed, and he's killed in the marketplace, and we assume Daemon did it because Daemon wants to marry his niece.
But Rhaenyra can't do anything bad, so that's why in this they sent him away.
In the lore, but you know, they're being a bit different. It's not been confirmed in the show. When a dragon bonds with a person, that bond exists until that person is dead.
Yeah.
So for Sea Smoke to want this bond from a book reader's perspective, it would mean Laenor has died somewhere across the narrow sea.
They don't not say that. Because he says he's missing his bond.
Lonely,
and is that he misses his bond or he's missing his bond?
But that was our first hint of Rhaenyra not fully committing. And I guess they didn't want to have to be kill the gays.
You could have left it ambiguous. You could have said, did she or didn't she?
I'd have rather have had that. It was a bit of a mucked up scene.
But Rhaenyra is an angel and so is Alicent. Why he didn't seek him out earlier? Maybe having Darkland try to go on him. He's like, I actually do want a rider. Yeah. You're right. Not you, though. I'm going to go get this other guy.
Get an actual one.
And they're geographically close enough that it makes sense. It's just a little strange that he accosted a guy.
And picked him out. But okay, and then, oh yes, as you said, we get the Smallfolk. Alicent just wants to try and connect with one of her kids.
And she's like, damn, I don't know, religion?
Religion, we're going to go do that because she's a religious character, and we're going to go, just do that. But then...
And we need to get you to a more vulnerable place than the castle so that we can attack you with Smallfolk.
Yeah, I like that we get to see all this, then we see the Smallfolk turn quite violent.
Not before being provoked, as in the Smallfolk get their food.
They're booing at first.
Yeah, they're just
throwing
like
fish.
Like, you're not really our queen. We like this other chick now because she sent us food,
even though she stopped us from having food.
Yeah, the queen of fishes was a good line, and then she gets smacked in the face.
The guy gets his arm chopped off by a clueless Kingsguard.
You lay your hand on the queen, you lose your hand.
Exactly.
Oh no, a riot.
So it's Alicent now seeing that it's all, it's fucking falling apart. And, it's good to remind that the Smallfolk exist, something that the original Game of Thrones series towards the end completely forgot.
But again, we also have been talking about the Smallfolk existing for 3 weeks now.
Well, this is their first we're getting riots in the city.
Yeah. It's all finally cumulated, but it's not like it's finished building now.
Well, we're going to get a War of Whispers maybe, that Larys is going to have to whisper some shit back to because it's all Masara's works.
It won't be the most entertaining thing to watch if they do that.
It can all feel a bit simple as well. Like, obviously, we can imagine these conversations and also the reality that there isn't much food. So the small folk would be easily turned towards...
It's simultaneously good to see that there's a civil war going on, but also it's just another one of the problems for the Red Keep.
When it keeps that marketing that if Rhaenyra was to fly in with all the dragons, they'd be like, oh, it's the nice queen, yeah.
Rhaenyra the saviour.
Yeah, Rhaenyra the kind. She's here to save us from evil Aemond One Eye.
Yeah, so they just keep piling up problems for, honestly, both sides. And the game that pushes the queens forward. It's full of queens now, just let them fall.
Yeah, right.
Let something happen.
Yeah, which we kind of get here. I think it's all stewing, and I think it's going to stew over in season 3. I'm afraid.
We'll get a big battle at the end of episode 8. We'll get a culmination.
For sure.
Rhaenyra's touching that dragon in episode 8. She ain't getting that dragon next episode.
I think she gets it next episode.
No, she'll spend next episode feeding sheep, and then in episode 8, she'll finally jump on the dragon. Because the rules state you're only allowed 2.5 minutes with Rhaenyra at maximum.
Yes.
Maybe that's why they cut this season down so much. They wrote jumping around so often, and then they were like, shit, we only got to 8 episodes. We only have 2 battles. We can't go 5 episodes before a battle and then another 5 before a battle, but we can do 4. I'm not falling away from the show. I still really enjoy the show, but you almost have to go in with the expectation you're not getting anything big until episode 4, and then you're not getting anything big until episode 8. So the weekly is making it drag a little.
I thought this episode overall was the better version of last week.
100%.
And overall, we maybe would have been nice to sort of, if we could have had more combinations. I am quite surprised at just how long we've stayed in this section. I actually thought we'd be a bit more speedrunner, but I do overall think that this is the best option. We have built and built and built. You know, like there is a version of this show where Daemon in the Riverlands is 2 episodes at the most.
There's probably an alternate reality where I'm complaining that this show feels too rushed.
Exactly.
So
which
it's
is
a
what
fine line.
one said last season was maybe a too rushed.
Mainly because of the time jumps, yeah.
Because of the time jumps.
It is also falling for the same things that last season fell for, with not enough time with each character.
Which is weird considering how few characters we have when compared to the original series.
The scenes are just too short, so instead of time jumps, we're now getting 2 minutes, and then half an hour passes, we get another 2 minutes with a character, then we wait till next episode to see them.
But they try, to their credit, they make sure every single one of those scenes is really good.
The fact that we've had Corlys for 35 seconds, last week he was sad for a second, clutched a thing, had a conversation with Baela. This episode, he puts a badge on, and then he has a conversation with his son.
It's definitely it's a shame, and obviously that's not like it's because the writers are incompetent and they've decided to short shrift Corlys.
Not incompetent, it's just the choice they made.
Is it even a choice? Is it just because we have 8 episodes and we've got other things that we need to do, and unfortunately Corlys is the one that has to be sacrificed? So we'll try and do our best with this Baela scene over here, and then we'll have to move on. And you know, and that's just the reality of what that is. It's just a production reality, maybe. But I think overall that this is a really competent, talented production team.
It's the best show on the air at the moment. There's still so many talented people behind it. It looks fantastic. It is a great thing
Everyone's
to watch.
10 out of 10 more or less performance-wise.
But it would be... I'm just greedy. I just want more.
I think that's what it is. It's a compliment to the show that we just wish we had more of it. And we wish every episode could be... We wish we had 10 episodes and we wish they were all an hour 10.
I was wrong, though. It's not a TikTok. This week wasn't the big one. It was just more build.
But it was a better
It was
build.
a better episode, for sure.
It was definitely a really strong episode. And, you know... I mean, you just feel sorry for poor old Aegon. I saw a YouTube poll of a pretty big channel going, who's your favourite character? And Aegon was notably the favourite because he's the most interesting.
I thought they'd put, like, Ratcatcher's puppy.
Well, I thought that was the dog again.
It was the dog.
I think it was a different dog.
It was the same scrappy dog.
Go back.
It was the same scrappy dog.
Different dog.
Same dog.
Let's see. Anyway.
Same dog. I'll cut that and I'll just show the same dog. Now show your reaction for when it was the same dog.
Oh, it was the same dog. Oh, I'm such an idiot.
Cool. I'll use that.
It was a different dog.
No,
Pay attention.
I won't need that one. I won't need that cut.